We're on Channel Zero Radio talking with Charlie Souza. Charlie, tell us a little bit about yourself, because people probably know your music, but they may not know your names. Tell us about yourself.
Well, you know, I've been touring around the country the last 5 years with a couple of the Rascals in a band called the New Rascals. But the reason I'm here today is to represent the Tropics, which was a band back in the 60s that was quite huge in Florida and the Southeast, and we recorded for Columbia Records and played on Dick Clark's American Bandstand, and they gave our song a 92 when they voted for it. At any rate, that was the best years of my life. My favorite band that I've ever played with was the Tropics, and we went from there, you know, through the 70s, the psychedelic 70s, and I ended up touring with Cactus, and the package included Blood Rock and Bob Seger, and we toured around the Midwest and the East Coast. And let's see, in the 80s I got signed to Atlantic Records with a group called Fortress, and we did okay, you know. Atlantic got behind Foreigner a whole lot more than Fortress, but we were right next to each other in the record racks, so that was a plus, you know. During the 90s I did a lot of studio work out in LA with Floyd Red Crow Westerman was a famous American Indian actor. You know, he was in Dances with Wolves and Jim Morrison's Spiritual Guide in the Doors movie, and I had the pleasure of recording his album. Yeah, that was a bit before 1980, but you know, he's passed away since. But that's one thing that I'm proud of. It's a very obscure fact in the music business, but he was a mountain of a man and showed me a lot of spiritual depth. You know, being an American Indian, you know, he was a heavy dude.
Well, you've got a great book here that is up for sale. We'll give details about that in a moment, how people can find it. But tell us about the book. Tell us what it's called, and tell us what it's about.
Well, it's called Live Your Dream, and you know, it begins with my childhood that really wasn't the best of childhoods, and I could have turned out to be a crook and a murderer, you know. It was that bad, but I had music, and music pulled me out of the tough spots and the hard roads, and I got in my first band, the Tropics, and we were successful enough to where I realized that playing music and singing music makes me happy, so that takes care of you know, any grief that you might have. But you know, over the years, the book just goes all the way through my life and talks about all the people I've worked with up until present day, like Dino Danelli of the Rascals, and he was my idol back in the 60s. And you know, I still had to pinch myself looking over, seeing who the drummer was. Oh, it's Dino Danelli, you know. And of course I had a little stint with Tom Petty and ran across the country with him and moved to Hollywood, California, and so all that's in the book, and you can find it at liveyourdreambook.com.
I understand it's also available through other sources as well, too.
Yeah, Barnes and Noble and, you know, Amazon, but you know, they give you $5 off of what I'm putting it out for on my website. But you know, you get a free music CD and a autographed, you know, personal message in the book and everything. So $29.95, you can't beat that.
And what's you know, you've run across all these incredible names. Tim Bogert, a legendary figure, one of the guys who really helped make the 60s come alive with Vanilla Fudge, Beck Bogert and Apathy. I mean, yeah, Cactus, a very underappreciated band. That was a pile driving band.
Well, that's when Timmy went to to work with Jeff Beck. That's when I took Timmy's place in Cactus and toured around the country. But Timmy and I became great friends out in L.A. He was a teacher at one of the schools out there that I went to, Dick Grove School of Music. And he and I hung out and got on quite well, as bass player buddies would. I think he's an icon in the world of rock and roll, and just to have his endorsement on my book, it's a real special thing.
Are there any stories that you can tell us that won't get anybody arrested, or anything you might find particularly interesting that you can, where the statute of limitations might have expired? I mean, it was the 60s, it was the 70s. Some stuff happened. Any stories that you can share?
Well, discreetly in the book, there's lots of stories. And just like if you'll remember when the Beatles used to write lyrics about things, but you thought it was about something else, and it would have double meanings. And so I tried to be very careful in my book not to be too demeaning about things and be just sort of suggestive and let the reader, figure out what I'm talking about.
Respecting the audience's intelligence is something that doesn't happen too much these days in mass entertainment. I'm sure people will actually enjoy reading between the lines and picking up some of those subliminal messages.
Well, I sure do hope they get the book, because it took me years to write it, and something that I'm proud of, and I've had a few people tell me that they couldn't put it down, so far it's all good news.
Well, we certainly hope that it continues to be good news for you, Charlie. You look great. It's a lot of people who went through the 60s and the music scene in the 60s, 70s, and 80s. Some of them are not looking so great. Time's obviously been good to you, taking good care of yourself.
Yeah, well, like I said, singing and playing does that for me. It's wonderful therapy. Music does the trick, and a lot of my friends aren't with us anymore, so I make sure I go get a checkup every now and then and take my vitamins.
All right. Thanks so much, Charlie Souza. What a great pleasure, and I can't say enough about having you on Channel Zero Radio. Thanks so much.
My pleasure. Thank you.